When tech billionaire Jennifer Hayes collapsed in a crowded restaurant choking and seconds from death, dozens of witnesses froze in horror. But one man, a tired father in worn work clothes eating his first real meal in weeks, moved without hesitation and saved her life with his bare hands. Then he vanished before anyone could learn his name. What she discovered when she finally found him would shatter everything she believed about power, worth, and what it means to be a hero. The restaurant hummed with the kind of low, sophisticated murmur that only money could buy. Crystal chandeliers cast warm amber light across white tablecloths, and the soft clink of silverware against fine china created a rhythm of refined civility. This was La Maison, one of the city's most exclusive establishments, where reservations required weeks of advance notice and a willingness to spend what most people earned in a month. Jennifer Hayes sat alone at a corner table, her posture perfect despite the exhaustion she carried like a second skin. At 42, she was the founder and CEO of Technova Industries, a tech empire worth $3 billion. Her charcoal suit was tailored to perfection, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek twist that revealed the sharp angles of her face. She'd spent the day in back-to-back board meetings navigating hostile investors and deflecting another takeover attempt. This dinner was supposed to be her reward: 2 hours of silence, exceptional food, and freedom from the constant demands of running an empire. She took a measured sip of her wine, letting the complexity unfold on her palate. Around her, the restaurant's other patrons leaned toward each other in intimate conversation, their laughter carefully modulated to avoid disturbing neighbors. Jennifer had specifically requested this table because it offered the illusion of privacy tucked into an alcove where she could observe without being observed. Across the dining room, separated by perhaps 30 feet and an entire universe of circumstance, Michael Torres sat at a much smaller table near the kitchen doors. At 32, he looked older than his years. His face carried the particular weariness that comes from working 2 jobs while raising a child alone, the kind of tired that sleep never quite erased. His clothes were clean but noticeably worn khakis that had seen too many wash cycles, and a button-down shirt that had been carefully ironed despite fraying at the collar. This dinner represented something precious to Michael. For the first time in 8 months, his daughter Lily was at a sleepover, and he'd received his quarterly bonus from the warehouse where he worked nights, $400, that should have gone immediately toward bills or Lily's ever-growing medical expenses. Instead, he'd made an impulsive decision. He'd walked into La Maison fully expecting to be turned away, but the hostess had simply smiled and shown him to this table near the back. The menu prices had made his stomach clench, but he'd ordered anyway. The house special, a modest wine, nothing extravagant. Just one evening where he could sit in a beautiful space and eat food he hadn't microwaved or assembled from a drive-through bag. Just 2 hours where he wasn't Michael the warehouse worker or Michael the struggling single dad, but simply a man enjoying a good meal. He watched the other diners with quiet fascination, noting the ease with which they inhabited this world. The couple 3 tables over didn't even glance at prices before ordering. The businessman near the window spoke on his phone with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about being overheard. And the woman in the corner, the one sitting alone with the bearing of royalty, she seemed to exist in a bubble of perfect, untouchable calm. Michael had no idea he was looking at Jennifer Hayes. He didn't follow business news or recognize the faces that graced magazine covers. To him, she was simply another person in an expensive restaurant living a life he couldn't imagine. The waiter approached Jennifer's table with practiced deference. "Your entree, Miss Hayes, pan-seared Chilean sea bass with a champagne beurre blanc microgreens from our rooftop garden and truffle-infused fingerling potatoes." "Thank you, David." Jennifer's voice carried the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. She picked up her fork, examining the presentation with the critical eye of a perfectionist. Everything in her life had to be exceptional. Mediocrity was unacceptable, whether in quarterly earnings or plating aesthetics. She cut into the fish, appreciating the perfect sear, and brought the first bite to her lips. The flavors were exquisite, buttery, delicate, with subtle notes of truffle and lemon. She chewed slowly, savoring both the taste and the rare moment of solitude. Then something went wrong. The piece of fish seemed to catch in her throat, lodging with sudden, terrifying completeness. Jennifer's eyes widened as she tried to swallow, but nothing moved. She reached for her water glass, but her hand froze halfway there as panic overrode muscle memory. Her throat closed tighter. No air, no sound. She tried to cough, but her airway was completely blocked. The restaurant's ambient noise, the conversations, the music, the gentle clink of dishes suddenly seemed very far away, muffled by the rushing sound in her ears. Jennifer stood abruptly, her chair scraping backward. Her hands went to her throat in the universal sign of choking, but her movements were already becoming uncoordinated. The woman who commanded boardrooms and made decisions affecting thousands of employees couldn't make her body obey the simplest command. Breathe. The couple at the nearest table noticed first. The woman's eyes widened in recognition of the crisis unfolding. "Oh my God, is she—" Her voice broke through the restaurant's sophisticated calm like a stone through glass. "Someone help!" the man called out, his voice cracking with uncertainty. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The gentle background music that had seemed so pleasant moments ago now felt obscene, cheerful notes playing over a developing tragedy. Jennifer stumbled, her hip catching the edge of her table. Wine glasses toppled, red liquid spreading across white linen like blood. She couldn't think clearly anymore. Her vision was starting to narrow, edges going dark. Somewhere in the back of her oxygen-starved mind she registered the absurdity. She was Jennifer Hayes. She'd survived hostile takeovers and ruthless competitors and the cutthroat world of Silicon Valley, and she was going to die choking on fish in a restaurant full of people. The maitre d' rushed forward, his professional composure cracking. "Does anyone know the Heimlich maneuver? Someone call 911. A man in an expensive suit half rose from his chair, then sat back down, clearly hoping someone else would act. A woman pulled out her phone but seemed frozen, unsure whether to record or actually call for help. The businessman by the window stood but didn't move closer, his face pale with uncertainty. This was the strange reality of crisis among the comfortable, surrounded by successful, educated people. Jennifer was dying because no one knew what to do or was willing to risk doing it wrong. Except one person. Michael had been cutting into his own meal, a far simpler dish than Jennifer's, but still the best thing he'd eaten in months when the commotion started. His head snapped up at the woman's cry, and his eyes immediately found Jennifer. He saw her hands at her throat, saw the panic in her eyes, saw the way she was swaying on her feet. He didn't think. Thinking took time Lily didn't have when she had asthma attacks in the middle of the night. Thinking meant hesitation, and hesitation meant consequences he'd learned to avoid. Michael was moving before his conscious mind had fully registered the decision. His chair toppled backward as he stood. He crossed the restaurant in long, fast strides, dodging between tables with the efficiency of someone who'd spent years navigating crowded warehouse floors. "Excuse me, coming through?" His voice was calm but carrying absolute authority. The crowd parted instinctively, responding to his certainty. He reached Jennifer just as her knees started to buckle. Up close he could see the blue tinge starting at her lips, could see that her eyes, though wide with fear, were beginning to lose focus. Seconds, that's all he had, maybe not even that. "Ma'am, I'm going to help you." Michael positioned himself behind her, his voice steady, the same tone he used when Lily woke up gasping for air at 2 a.m. Calm, confident, capable. "This is going to feel uncomfortable, but I need you to trust me." He wrapped his arms around her midsection, one hand forming a fist just above her navel, the other grasping it firmly. He could feel her ribcage expanding as her body desperately tried to draw air that wouldn't come, could feel the fine tremors running through her as panic and oxygen deprivation took hold. Jennifer's hands clutched at his arms, her grip surprisingly strong despite her weakening state. In some distant part of her fading consciousness, she registered the worn fabric of his shirt, the calloused strength of his hands, the solid certainty of his presence behind her. What she couldn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that Michael had done this exact thing 3 times before. At 2 a.m, alone in a dark apartment, when his daughter couldn't breathe and 911 was too slow. The terror never gets easier. You just learn to move through it. Michael pulled inward and upward with controlled force, delivering the first thrust of the Heimlich maneuver exactly as he'd learned it from the free CPR class at Lily's school. Nothing. He repositioned, slightly adjusted his grip, and delivered a second thrust, harder this time. The restaurant had gone completely silent except for someone's phone clattering to the floor and the distant sound of sirens. The 911 call was already working its way through the system, ambulance en route, but too slow. Far too slow. Third thrust. Michael felt Jennifer's body jerk against his, felt her try to draw breath and fail. His own heart was pounding now, but his hands remained steady. He'd done this before. With Lily had saved his daughter's life when she was younger, and before they'd gotten her asthma under control. He knew what failure looked like, and he wasn't going to let it happen here. "Come on," he murmured so quietly only Jennifer could have heard if she'd still been fully conscious. "Come on, you're not done yet." Fourth thrust, this one with every ounce of controlled strength he possessed. The obstruction dislodged. The piece of fish shot from Jennifer's throat and landed on the carpet several feet away. For one terrible second, nothing else happened. Then Jennifer drew in a great gasping, ragged breath. The sound of it seemed to fill the entire restaurant, raw and desperate and absolutely beautiful. She sagged against Michael, her legs unable to support her weight. He lowered them both carefully to the floor, keeping one arm around her shoulders as she coughed and gasped, drawing in oxygen like someone who'd just surfaced from deep water. "That's it," Michael said softly, his hand steady on her back. "Just breathe nice and slow. You're okay now." The restaurant erupted. Applause broke out, scattered at first and then building to a crescendo. Voices overlapped in excited chatter, everyone suddenly wanting to narrate what they'd just witnessed, to claim some small part of the drama. "Did you see that? He saved her life. That was incredible. Someone get him a drink, get him whatever he wants." The maitre d' appeared at Michael's side, his face flushed with relief and gratitude. "Sir, I cannot thank you enough. That was extraordinary. Please, you and the lady, your meals are absolutely on the house, anything you want." But Michael was already standing, gently steadying Jennifer before releasing her into the care of a waiter who'd rushed over with a chair. Jennifer looked up at him, her face still pale but color returning, her eyes now sharp and focused, despite the trauma she'd just endured. She tried to speak, but her throat was raw, the words emerging as barely more than a whisper. "Wait. I need to thank you. Your name?" Michael shook his head, already backing away. The attention was becoming overwhelming. People were standing now, some with phones out, cameras pointed in his direction. The last thing he wanted was to become a spectacle, to have his face plastered across social media, to have Lily see her dad in videos with people calling him a hero when he'd just done what anyone should do. "You don't need to thank me." His voice was quiet but firm. "I'm just glad you're all right." "But I don't even know your name." "You don't need to." Michael glanced at the gathering crowd, at the phones, at the maitre d', who was clearly about to launch into more effusive gratitude. "Just take care of yourself, okay?" He turned and walked away, navigating back through the tables toward his own abandoned meal. Behind him, the excited chatter continued. People already constructing narratives about what they'd witnessed, each version slightly different drama building with each retelling. The maitre d' followed him, practically stumbling in his haste. "Sir, please at least let me comp your meal. We'll prepare anything you'd like, the finest wine, dessert, absolutely everything." Michael reached his table and pulled out his wallet. "That's kind of you, but I should probably go." "How much do I owe for what I ordered?" The maitre d' looked offended. "Sir, after what you just did, you couldn't possibly. We couldn't accept." Michael placed 3 $20 bills on the table, more than enough to cover his modest order, plus a generous tip. "I appreciate it, I really do, but I'd rather just pay and head home." He could see the man wanted to argue, but something in Michael's expression, a quiet dignity, a firm unwillingness to be made into something, he wasn't, stopped him. The maitre d' nodded slowly, accepting the bills with obvious reluctance. "At the very least, please allow me to give you my card. If you ever wish to dine with us again, it would be our honor to host you." Michael accepted the card to be polite, knowing he'd never use it. This wasn't his world, and one emergency didn't change that. He glanced once more toward the corner where Jennifer now sat surrounded by concerned staff and fellow diners. Their eyes met across the room for just a moment. She raised one hand slightly, a gesture that might have been acknowledgement or gratitude or simply farewell. Michael nodded once and left through the main entrance. The street was quieter than the restaurant had been, normal city sounds replacing the drama he'd left behind. He stood for a moment, letting his heart rate settle, his hands still slightly shaky from adrenaline. His phone buzzed a text from Lily's friend's mother. "Having a great time. Sophie's already asleep. No rush picking her up in the morning." Michael smiled despite everything relief flooding through him. Lily was safe, happy, enjoying a normal childhood moment. That was what mattered. Not the scene in the restaurant, not the woman whose life he'd saved, not the attention he'd just fled. Just Lily, sleeping peacefully, unburdened by worry or responsibility. He started walking toward the bus stop, hands in his pockets, already mentally shifting back to his regular life. Tomorrow he'd be back at the warehouse loading trucks and processing inventory. Tomorrow this would be a strange story he might tell Lily someday when she was older. Tomorrow everything would be normal again. He had no idea that normal had just ended forever. Inside La Maison, Jennifer sat in the chair the waiter had provided, a glass of water in her trembling hands. Her throat ached, her chest felt bruised, and she was acutely aware of how close she'd come to dying. But more than any of that, she was aware of the absence of the man who'd saved her. Rachel Morrison appeared from nowhere. She must have been called the moment the incident started. Rachel's efficiency as Jennifer's executive assistant was what made her invaluable. "Miss Hayes, the ambulance is here. They want to check you over, and I really think—" "I'm fine." Jennifer's voice was rough but functional. "I don't need—" "With respect, you absolutely do need medical attention." Rachel interrupted, one of the few people who could get away with contradicting Jennifer Hayes. "You just choked and nearly died. Protocol requires—" "Fine." Jennifer stood, accepting the arm Rachel offered for support. Her legs were steadier now, but the adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "But first, I need to know who that man was." "Already working on it." Rachel guided her toward the entrance where paramedics were setting up. "I've got the restaurant pulling up his reservation credit card receipt, anything they have." The maitre d' checked his records, confusion creasing his features. "That's odd. He didn't have a reservation. Walk in. Paid cash for his meal before he left." He paused, checking again. "I gave him my card, but he didn't give me his name. I'm sorry, Miss Hayes. I didn't think to ask." Jennifer felt something strange stirring in her chest, not just gratitude, but genuine curiosity. In her world, everyone wanted something. Favors, connections, opportunities, recognition. She'd built her empire understanding that fundamental truth about human nature. People didn't act without expecting returns. But this man in worn clothes, who'd moved with such certainty, who'd saved her life with such competence, had walked away from the attention, the free meals, the opportunity to network with one of the country's wealthiest CEOs. He'd refused the spotlight and disappeared back into anonymity, as if saving lives was just something he did between courses. Someone must have recorded it. Rachel was already scrolling through her phone. People were filming. We'll find footage, identify him from that. "Do it," Jennifer said as the paramedics approached with their equipment. "I need to thank him properly. I need to know who he is." The lead paramedic, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, began her assessment. "Miss Hayes, I'm going to ask you some questions and check your vitals. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" As Jennifer recounted the incident, she found herself focusing not on the terror of choking, but on the moment the stranger's arms had wrapped around her, the calm authority in his voice, the absolute certainty of his movements, the way he'd known exactly what to do while everyone else had frozen. "You're very lucky." The paramedic checked Jennifer's oxygen levels. Another 30 seconds, and this could have ended very differently. "The person who helped you, was it someone you knew?" "No, a complete stranger." "Then you're lucky twice over. Most people panic in situations like that. Even people who know the Heimlich maneuver theoretically often can't execute it under pressure. Whoever helped you has either been trained extensively or has done it before, or both. Jennifer thought about his hands calloused from labor, the way he'd refused recognition. This wasn't a good Samaritan looking for positive PR or a networking opportunity. This was someone who'd helped because helping was necessary, then left because staying would have been uncomfortable. It had been a very long time since Jennifer had encountered anyone who didn't want something from her. "I'd like to transport you to the hospital for observation," the paramedic was saying. "Injuries from choking aren't always immediately apparent." "I'll go." Jennifer surprised both the paramedic and Rachel. Normally she argued against anything that disrupted her schedule, but tonight she was tired, shaken, and acutely aware of her own mortality. "But Rachel stays with me, and she keeps working on finding that man." "Already on it." Rachel confirmed, her fingers flying across her phone screen. "First posts are going up now. Mystery hero saves tech CEO. Twitter's already building a narrative." Jennifer closed her eyes briefly, both grateful for and exhausted by the machinery of modern attention. Within hours, this would be a trending story. Within days, someone would identify the stranger from footage or photos. Her PR team would spin it. Her competitors would analyze it. And the man who'd wanted nothing but to slip away quietly would be dragged into the spotlight whether he liked it or not. Part of her felt guilty about that. But a larger part, the part that had built an empire through relentless determination, needed to find him, needed to thank him, needed to understand why someone would save a stranger's life and then refuse the world's gratitude. The video went viral before midnight. Rachel sat in the hospital waiting room laptop balanced on her knees, watching the numbers climb with the detached fascination of someone who'd spent years managing digital narratives. Views, shares, comments, all multiplying at exponential rates as the algorithm picked up the story and fed it to millions of screens across the country. "Mystery hero saves billionaire CEO and vanishes," read one headline. Another proclaimed, "The man who refused fame after saving a life." A third, more cynical, "Tech CEO chokes unknown savior, disappears. Who is he?" The comment sections were already building their own mythology. Some praised the mystery man's humility. Others speculated about his motives. Was he hiding something? Running from the law? Avoiding child support? A few insisted the whole thing was staged, that nothing genuine could happen without cameras and contracts prearranged. Rachel filtered through it all with practiced efficiency, flagging useful information and discarding the noise. 3 different angles of video now, none with a clear shot of the man's face. Dozens of eyewitness accounts, each slightly different drama, inflating with each retelling. And buried in the comments of the second video, one detail that made her pause. A user named Margaret_White_1987 had written, "That looks like the guy who works night shift at Riverside Logistics. Same build, same walk. He's there when I drop my brother off for his shift." Rachel immediately cross-referenced Riverside Logistics, a mid-sized warehouse and distribution center on the industrial side of town. She made a note, sent a message to Technova's security team, and glanced toward the examination room where Jennifer was being observed. Inside, Jennifer sat on the edge of the hospital bed, tolerating the nurse's final checks with barely concealed impatience. The doctor had already cleared her bruised ribs, strained throat, instructions to rest and stay hydrated, but no serious damage. She'd been lucky, he'd said, using that word again. Lucky that someone had known what to do. "You can go home now, Miss Hayes." The nurse made notes on a tablet. "But I want you to promise me you'll actually rest. No work for at least 48 hours. "Of course," Jennifer lied smoothly. She had board presentations in 3 days and a product launch to finalize. Rest was a luxury she couldn't afford, near-death experience or not. The nurse gave her a look, suggesting she'd heard similar promises from driven professionals before and knew exactly how much they were worth. "Your assistant said your car is already here." Jennifer nodded, already mentally cataloging the work that had piled up during her absence. But underneath the familiar rhythm of professional obligations, something else nagged at her. The image of the stranger's face half turned away from cameras, and the question that wouldn't leave her alone. Who was he? Rachel appeared in the doorway, laptop under one arm, phone in the other hand. We might have a lead. Someone thinks they recognize him from a warehouse job. I've got people checking employment records now." "Good." Jennifer stood accepting the bag of personal items Rachel handed her. "I want to know by morning." "You should also know the story's gotten bigger. It's trending on 3 platforms. Entertainment Tonight wants a statement. So does the local news. Your PR team has drafted something appropriately grateful and mysterious." "Send it," Jennifer said, though part of her bristled at the manipulation. This was her life that had been saved, not a marketing opportunity. But she'd learned long ago that refusing to shape narratives just meant someone else shaped them for you, and rarely in your favor. They walked through the hospital corridor together, Rachel automatically clearing their path with a combination of authority and strategic positioning. A few people recognized Jennifer did double takes, whispered to companions. One young man actually pulled out his phone before the sharp look Rachel gave him made him reconsider. The town car was waiting at the entrance, Jennifer's regular driver holding the door. Marcus had worked for her for 6 years and knew better than to ask questions when she looked like this, exhausted and irritable and in no mood for small talk. "Home, Ms. Hayes." "Office," Jennifer said, ignoring Rachel's sharp intake of breath. "I need to check on a few things before—" "With respect, you need sleep," Rachel interrupted. "The doctor said rest. Your body just experienced trauma, and you're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Jennifer wanted to argue. The instinct to push through, to never show weakness, was bone deep after 20 years of fighting for every inch of success in a male-dominated industry. But she was tired in a way that went beyond physical. The adrenaline crash had left her hollow and her throat ached with every swallow. "Fine, home," she conceded, sliding into the car. "But I want updates every hour on the search." "Every 3 hours," Rachel countered, getting in beside her. "You need actual sleep, not to be checking your phone all night." Jennifer didn't respond, which Rachel correctly interpreted as reluctant agreement. As Marcus pulled away from the hospital, Jennifer stared out the window at the city sliding past late-night traffic, illuminated storefronts, people going about their normal lives completely unaware that hers had just been saved by a stranger. "Rachel," she said after a moment, "why do you think he left?" Rachel looked up from her phone, surprise flickering across her features. Jennifer rarely asked questions she didn't already know the answer to. Some people don't want attention, or maybe he had somewhere to be. He refused free meals at one of the city's finest restaurants, refused recognition, refused to even give his name. Jennifer kept her gaze on the window. "In my experience, everyone wants something." "Maybe his thing is not wanting things," Rachel suggested. "Some people are just genuinely humble. Or he's hiding something." "You don't really believe that?" It wasn't a question. Jennifer didn't answer because Rachel was right. Whatever else the stranger might be, her instincts honed by decades of reading people, of identifying threats and opportunities, said he wasn't hiding criminal intent. He was hiding himself, which was different. More interesting. Her phone rang. Her mother, who somehow always knew when something happened despite Jennifer's best efforts to manage information flow. "I saw the news. Are you all right? Call me when you can." Jennifer stared at the message, debating whether to respond now or wait until morning when she'd have the energy for her mother's particular brand of concerned interrogation. She was still deciding when her phone rang again, her mother not willing to wait. "I'm fine." "You nearly died choking in a restaurant." Her mother's voice carried the sharp clarity of someone who'd raised 3 children mostly alone after divorce. "That doesn't qualify as fine." "I'm home," Jennifer lied. "I saw a doctor. I'm perfectly healthy. It was just a freak accident." "The news is saying some mystery man saved you and then disappeared. Is that accurate?" Jennifer found herself smiling despite everything. "Surprisingly, yes. The news actually got something right for once." "Do you know who he was?" "Not yet. We're working on it." There was a pause on the other end, and Jennifer could almost hear her mother's thoughts organizing themselves. "You're going to find him and try to repay him somehow." "I'm going to thank him properly." "Yes." Her mother's tone shifted to something gentler, more concerned. "Jennifer, not everyone wants to be found. If this man left without giving his name, maybe he has his reasons." I'm not going to hurt him. I just want to express my gratitude. I know, sweetheart, but be careful that gratitude doesn't turn into something else. People who save our lives can become larger than life in our minds. We project onto them qualities they may not actually have. Jennifer wanted to argue, but she was too tired for the philosophical debate her mother was clearly ready to have. I'll be careful, I promise. And you'll actually rest? Not work yourself into the ground like you usually do after a crisis. I'm literally sitting on my couch doing nothing right now. With your laptop open, I'm guessing. Jennifer glanced at the laptop screen Rachel had just opened, still displaying the viral video. I'll rest. Call you tomorrow. After they hung up, Jennifer did close the laptop, but she couldn't stop thinking about her mother's warning. Was she projecting building up this stranger into some kind of hero because she needed to believe someone could act without ulterior motives? She touched her throat, feeling the tenderness there, remembering the absolute certainty in the stranger's voice when he'd said, "I'm going to help you." No hesitation, no doubt, just calm competence in the face of her panic. Whatever else he might be, he'd known exactly what to do when it mattered most. And that was real, not projection. By morning, Rachel had a name. She called Jennifer at 7 a.m., knowing her boss would already be awake despite the late night and medical trauma. Michael Torres, 32 years old, works night shift at Riverside Logistics. Single father to an 8-year-old daughter. No criminal record, no outstanding debts, no social media presence to speak of. Jennifer sat up in bed, instantly alert. How certain are we? 95%. We cross-referenced employee photos from the warehouse, matched them to the clearest frames from the video, got a positive ID. One of our security consultants actually knows the warehouse manager confirmed Torres was scheduled last night, but called in, said he had something to take care of. Timeline matches perfectly. Address. Rachel rattled off an apartment complex in a working-class neighborhood on the east side, the kind of place where rent was affordable because everything else wasn't. Schools struggled. Infrastructure was aging. Opportunities were limited. Jennifer absorbed this information, feeling pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. A warehouse worker on night shift would have the kind of hands she'd felt calloused from physical labor. A single father would have the confidence that came from handling emergencies alone, no backup. Someone living paycheck to paycheck would wear clothes until they fell apart and see dinner at La Maison as a rare extravagance worth splurging on. "What do you want me to do with this information?" Rachel asked carefully. Good question. Jennifer could send flowers, a generic thank you card, money, all of which felt simultaneously inadequate and potentially insulting. She could do nothing, respect his clear desire for anonymity, let him fade back into his normal life. Or she could do what every instinct told her to do, meet him face to face, look him in the eye, and try to understand who this man actually was. Nothing yet. I need to think about the right approach. The press is still building the story, Rachel warned. Someone's going to identify him publicly soon if they haven't already. You might want to reach out before that happens and he gets mobbed. She was right. Once his name went public, Michael Torres would be dealing with interview requests, social media harassment, people showing up at his workplace and home, the circus Jennifer had inadvertently created by being saved. Give me until this afternoon. I'll decide by then. After hanging up, she sat in bed with her laptop pulling up everything the internet had to offer about Michael Torres. It wasn't much, no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter, no LinkedIn. A digital ghost in an age where everyone performed their lives online. She found a newspaper article from 5 years ago, a human interest piece about a community fundraiser. Michael Torres had organized a toy drive for children's hospitals, motivated by his daughter's extended stays during treatment for severe asthma. The accompanying photo showed a younger version of the man from the restaurant holding a small girl with dark curls and a bright smile. Another search turns up public records. Marriage license from 9 years ago. Death certificate for Sarah Ann Torres 3 years later. Jennifer did the math. Michael had been widowed at 29, left to raise a young daughter alone. She found his employment history through less official channels: community college dropout, a series of jobs in warehousing and logistics. Steady work, but nothing spectacular. No ambition for management, no night school for advancement. Just consistent employment at places that offered health insurance and flexible scheduling. A man who'd prioritized stability over success. Who'd built his life around his daughter's needs rather than his own advancement. Who'd walked away from an opportunity to network with a billionaire CEO because he genuinely hadn't wanted anything from her. Jennifer closed the laptop, feeling something she rarely experienced: uncertainty about how to proceed. This wasn't a business negotiation where she could leverage power and resources. This was a person who'd helped her in a moment of desperate need and then deliberately chosen invisibility over reward. Her phone rang, her PR director calling with the morning's media update. 3 major outlets want interviews. Good Morning America local news, and a podcast with 5 million subscribers. They want the story you, the choking incident, the mystery hero. It's a perfect human interest angle. "I'm not doing interviews about this," Jennifer said flatly. "With respect, we should capitalize on the positive coverage. You're trending for being saved, but the narrative is still sympathetic. It's good PR. David, I nearly died. This isn't a PR opportunity. Everything's a PR opportunity if you frame it correctly." He paused, recognizing he'd pushed too far. "But I understand if you'd prefer to keep this private. We can issue a statement thanking the public for their concern and leave it at that. Do that, and make sure the statement emphasizes that I want to respect the privacy of the person who helped me. No speculation about his identity, no calls for him to come forward. Make it clear we're not participating in the circus." "Understood. Though I should warn you, someone's going to identify him regardless of what we say. The internet doesn't respect privacy requests." "I know." Jennifer ended the call, already composing her next message. She texted Rachel, "I want to meet with him today if possible, but quietly. No press, no security detail, just me. Can you arrange it?" The response came quickly. "Are you sure that's wise? We don't actually know this person." Jennifer typed back, "He saved my life. I think I owe him the benefit of the doubt." "Meeting him in public then. Coffee shop, neutral territory." "Agreed." Jennifer stood, heading to her closet to choose an outfit. Not the power suit she wore to intimidate competitors, not the casual luxury she wore to galas. Something normal, approachable, the kind of thing that wouldn't immediately scream wealth and power. She settled on dark jeans and a simple sweater, minimal jewelry, understated. Then she looked at herself in the mirror and laughed quietly at the absurdity. Jennifer Hayes trying to dress down to meet a warehouse worker who'd saved her life and didn't want recognition. Her phone buzzed. Rachel again. "He starts his shift at 11 p.m. We could approach him at the warehouse around 10:30. Catch him before work." Jennifer typed back, "No, I don't want to corner him at his job. Find out when he's dropping his daughter at school. I'll approach him then. Casual, just a conversation." "That's borderline stalking. That's showing up to say thank you." "Okay, but I'm coming with you. Safety protocol." Jennifer didn't argue. Rachel would insist. And honestly, showing up alone might be more intimidating than showing up with an assistant. At least with Rachel there, it was clearly a professional courtesy rather than something more personal. Though what exactly it was becoming, Jennifer wasn't entirely sure. Michael woke to Lily bouncing on his bed, her standard morning greeting when she was in a good mood. Dad, Mrs. Chen said we're getting a class pet. Probably a hamster. Can we get a hamster too?" He groaned, squinting at the clock. 7:15 meant he'd gotten about 4 hours of sleep after his shift. His body ached in the specific way that came from lifting boxes for 8 hours, and his ribs were sore from yesterday's exertion. The Heimlich looked simple in diagrams, but executing it properly required significant force. He'd have bruises. "Lily, we've talked about pets. The apartment doesn't allow. But a hamster is really small. It would live in a cage, please." He sat up, pulling her into a hug that made her giggle and squirm. "We'll see. Now go brush your teeth. You've got school in an hour." Lily scampered off, already chattering about hamster names, and Michael allowed himself 1 more minute of rest before hauling himself out of bed. His phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Michael ignored all of them, focusing instead on the morning routine: breakfast for Lily, packing her lunch, finding her homework that she swore she'd put in her backpack but was actually under the couch. Normal, familiar, the parts of life that mattered. "Dad, why does your phone keep buzzing? Work stuff," Michael said through a mouthful of cereal, which was easier than explaining that strangers on the internet were obsessed with a video of him saving someone's life. "Nothing important." They walked to school together like always, Lily holding his hand and telling elaborate stories about her friend's new puppy. Michael listened with half his attention, the rest scanning their surroundings out of habit, checking for traffic, watching for anything unusual. The hypervigilance of a parent who'd learned that danger could come from anywhere. He didn't notice the expensive town car parked down the block or the two women inside watching them through tinted windows. At the school gates, Lily hugged him tight. "Love you, Dad. See you after work." "Love you too, sweetheart. Be good." He watched until she disappeared inside, always watched until she was safe inside, then started the walk back to their apartment. He had 4 hours before he needed to sleep, which meant time to do laundry, buy groceries, and maybe catch up on the household repairs he'd been putting off. "Mr. Torres?" The voice made him turn. A woman stood beside the town car he hadn't noticed, dressed too well for this neighborhood professional suit expensive bag. Beside her stood another woman, and Michael's breath caught as he recognized her from yesterday. The one he'd saved, though she looked different without terror in her eyes. Michael stepped back instinctively, his heart spiking. "I'm sorry to approach you like this." Jennifer moved forward quickly, reading his discomfort. "I know this is unexpected. I just wanted to thank you in person for what you did." Michael glanced around, suddenly aware that anyone could be watching, filming, posting. "How did you find me? I have resources. I know that sounds ominous, but I promise my intentions are good. I just wanted to express my gratitude." "You don't need to. I'm glad you're okay. That's enough." Jennifer's voice carried quiet intensity. "It's not enough for me. You saved my life. I can't just send a card and move on." Michael was genuinely confused. "Why not?" "That's what people do. Send cards, say thanks, move on with their lives." They stood facing each other on the sidewalk, two people from completely different worlds, neither quite sure how to bridge the gap. Rachel, sensing the conversation stalling, stepped forward. "Mr. Torres, would you be willing to have coffee with Miss Hayes? Just a conversation. 15 minutes of your time." Michael looked at them both. The billionaire CEO who'd nearly died, the efficient assistant who'd tracked him down, and felt the weight of obligation settling on his shoulders. He didn't want this. Didn't want attention or gratitude or whatever complicated social debt they thought he'd created. But he also recognized that sometimes you didn't get to choose your responsibilities. Sometimes they chose you. 15 minutes, but somewhere quiet, no cameras. Relief crossed Jennifer's features. "I know just the place." They ended up at a small diner 6 blocks from Lily's school, the kind of place with vinyl booths and laminated menus that hadn't changed since the 90s. Jennifer had never been inside an establishment like this, and Rachel looked actively uncomfortable as they slid into a corner booth, but Michael seemed to relax slightly once they were seated away from the windows. The waitress appeared with a coffee pot before anyone answered her name tag reading Donna Jackson, carrying the efficient weariness of someone who'd worked this shift for 20 years. Coffee. She was already pouring. Michael turned over his cup. He knew Donna had brought Lily here for pancakes on her birthday last year, and the familiarity of the surroundings helped counter the surreal nature of sitting across from one of the wealthiest women in the country. Jennifer and Rachel both nodded, and Donna poured without comment, though her eyes lingered on Jennifer with faint recognition. "Let me know if you need anything else." After she left, silence settled over the table. Rachel busied herself with her phone, clearly trying to give them space while remaining present. Michael added cream to his coffee with steady hands, and Jennifer found herself watching the simple gesture, noting again the calluses, the competence, the lack of self-consciousness. "I meant what I said. I wanted to thank you properly. What you did," Michael interrupted gently. "It was basic first aid. Anyone could have done it." Jennifer leaned forward. "But no one else did. The restaurant was full of people, educated, successful people, and they all froze. You didn't." Michael shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. They probably didn't know what to do. I learned the Heimlich when my daughter was younger. She has severe asthma. Used to have attacks where she couldn't breathe. I took every safety course I could find because I needed to know how to help her. Something in Jennifer's expression shifted, understanding replacing curiosity. Your daughter, Lily, right? Michael's eyes sharpened, a flash of protective concern crossing his features. How do you know her name? Rachel spoke quietly, looking up from her phone. Public records. The fundraiser article from a few years ago. We weren't trying to invade your privacy, just trying to understand who you were. Why? Michael asked, his tone not hostile but genuinely confused. I helped someone who needed it. That should be the end of it. Why does it matter who I am? Jennifer studied him with the same intensity she brought to negotiating billion-dollar deals. Because in my world, everyone has an agenda. Everyone wants something. But you saved my life and then walked away from the opportunity to leverage that into anything useful. It's... She searched for the right word. Unusual. It's decent, Michael corrected. Or at least it should be. I don't want anything from you, Ms. Hayes. I'm not looking for a job or money or connections or whatever people in your world trade in. I just want to go back to my regular life and pretend none of this happened. That's not possible anymore. Rachel's tone was apologetic but firm. The video has been viewed millions of times. Someone's going to identify you publicly if they haven't already. You're about to become a story whether you like it or not. Michael's jaw tightened. I didn't ask to be a story. No, Jennifer agreed. You asked to be left alone, but I'm afraid that ship has sailed, which is partly why I wanted to find you first, to warn you what's coming and to offer help managing it. Managing it? Something hard entered Michael's voice. You mean PR, controlling the narrative, making me into some kind of character in your company's brand story? Jennifer responded sharply, stung by the accuracy of his cynicism. No, I mean protecting your privacy and your daughter's safety. I mean making sure when reporters show up at your work or your home or Lily's school, you have resources to deal with it. I mean giving you options instead of leaving you to drown in attention you never wanted. Rachel pulled out her tablet, opening a document. We've drafted a statement you could release, brief, respectful, asking for privacy. We can also have our legal team send cease and desist letters to any media outlets that harass you or Lily, and if you need security for a few days while the initial frenzy dies down. Security. Michael interrupted, the word foreign in his mouth. For what, I'm a warehouse worker, not a celebrity. Rachel was blunt. You saved a billionaire CEO's life. That makes you interesting to a lot of people with cameras and microphones. Some of them will be respectful, others won't be. Michael thought about Lily walking to school past reporters being photographed without permission. The idea made his stomach turn. I can't afford security. You wouldn't have to. Jennifer's voice was firm. Consider it part of my thank you, along with covering any legal fees or other expenses that come up because of this situation. Michael's response came out harder than he'd intended. I don't want your money. I appreciate the offer, but I don't need charity. Jennifer matched his tone. It's not charity. It's compensation for disrupting your life. I didn't ask you to save me, and you didn't ask for the consequences, but here we are. The least I can do is make sure those consequences don't hurt you or your daughter. They sat in tense silence. The clatter of dishes and low conversation from other diners filled the space between them. Donna appeared with the coffee pot, refilling their cups without being asked her presence, a brief interruption that gave everyone a moment to breathe. After she left, Michael spoke more quietly. Miss Hayes, I understand you're trying to help. I do. But in my experience, when rich people offer help, there are strings attached, expectations, obligations. I've worked hard to build a life where I don't owe anyone anything, where Lily and I are independent. I'm not eager to complicate that. Jennifer's response was direct. There are no strings. I'm not trying to buy you or own you or turn you into a prop for my image. I genuinely just want to help mitigate the damage I've caused by being saved in a public place. Michael studied her face, looking for the lie, the angle, the hidden agenda. But Jennifer Hayes, whatever else she might be, met his gaze directly, and he saw something there that surprised him. Guilt. She actually felt responsible for what was happening to him. Here's what the cameras didn't show. Michael had spent 3 years building a life where he controlled every variable, where no one could disappoint him or leave him or make promises they couldn't keep. He'd learned that lesson when Sarah died, that the only person you could truly count on was yourself. And this woman, this billionaire who lived in a completely different universe, was asking him to trust her. That was harder than saving her life had been. Rachel's phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at it, her expression tightening. "We have a problem. Someone just posted your name on Reddit. Full name, workplace, general neighborhood. It's already been shared to Twitter." Michael closed his eyes briefly, feeling the last remnants of his privacy evaporating. "How long until they have my address?" Rachel's response was grim. "Hours. Maybe less. Public records are public." Lily. Michael's mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios. "I need to call her school, make sure no one—" "Already done." Rachel interrupted, already typing rapidly on her tablet. "I'm sending a message to the school administration now flagging that Lily Torres is not to be released to anyone except you, that media should be turned away from school property, and that any unusual activity should be reported immediately. I'll copy you on everything." Michael was surprised. "You can do that?" Rachel didn't look up from her typing. "I can do a lot of things, Mr. Torres, including making sure your daughter stays safe while the internet loses its mind over her dad being a decent person." Michael watched Rachel work with practiced efficiency, and his resistance began to crack under the practical reality of their situation. He wouldn't let pride endanger his daughter. "Okay." The word carried the weight of a surrender he didn't want to make. "What do I need to do?" Jennifer felt relief wash over her, though she was careful not to show it. "First, we release a joint statement. Something brief. I'm grateful you're humble. We both want privacy. It won't stop the attention completely, but it frames the narrative before someone else does." Rachel continued, her tone shifting to the efficient problem-solving mode she used for crisis management. "Then we get you home and assess security needs for the next few days. We'll have someone discreet keep an eye on your building, make sure reporters don't camp out in your lobby. Same for Lily's school." "How long does this usually last?" "The attention, I mean." Jennifer was honest. "Depends on what else is happening in the news. Could be a few days, could be a couple weeks. But it will fade. Everything does eventually." Michael ran a hand through his hair. Exhaustion evident in the gesture. "I have to work tonight. I can't just take time off because the internet decided I'm interesting." "We can talk to your employer, explain the situation, arrange for—" Michael cut Rachel off. "No, I don't want special treatment at work. I show up on time, do my job, and go home. That's the deal. I'm not asking for exceptions because of this." Jennifer recognized the pride in his voice, the same fierce independence that had made him refuse recognition in the restaurant. She understood it in a way she hadn't expected. She'd built her own career, refusing to accept limitations or special treatment because of her gender, fighting for every achievement to be purely on merit. "Then we'll work around your schedule. But you should know your employer might get calls from media asking for comments or interviews. You might want to give them a heads up." Michael nodded slowly, accepting this as reasonable. "My supervisor Kenneth already texted me about the video. He thinks it's funny. I'll talk to him before my shift." Jennifer pulled out a business card, wrote her personal cell number on the back, and slid it across the table. "If anything happens, reporters showing up, people bothering Lily, anything that makes you uncomfortable, call me. Day or night, I'll handle it." Michael looked at the card like it might explode. "I'm not going to call a billionaire CEO at 3 in the morning because a reporter knocked on my door." Jennifer's voice carried quiet certainty. "You will if they're harassing your daughter, and I'll have lawyers on site within an hour. That's not charity, Mr. Torres. That's taking responsibility for the situation my rescue created." Michael sat there for a moment longer, the debate playing across his features. Finally, he picked up the card and put it in his wallet. It felt like accepting more than contact information. It felt like acknowledging that his life had changed in ways he couldn't control, and that maybe, just maybe, he needed help dealing with it. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why were you eating alone in the restaurant? Someone like you, I figured you'd always have people around. Jennifer smiled, slightly surprised by the question and by how much she wanted to answer honestly. Sometimes people around you is the loneliest thing in the world. I was alone because it was the only way to actually have peace. Michael nodded like he understood, though his solitude came from different circumstances, not choice but necessity, not escape but reality. Makes sense. Thanks for the coffee. Thank you for giving me the chance to say thank you in person. He almost smiled at that, the corners of his mouth quirking up briefly before he caught himself. Then he was heading toward the door, shoulders slightly hunched like he was bracing against wind. Jennifer watched him go with the strange feeling that she'd just met someone who would prove important in ways she couldn't yet predict. Rachel slid back into the booth, already pulling up documents on her tablet. He's going to be eaten alive by the media if we don't move fast. I'll have the statement ready in 30 minutes, coordinate with his employer, get security assigned to discreet surveillance by this afternoon. Good. Jennifer sat back down, staring at the coffee cup Michael had left behind. Rachel looked up, surprised by the question. What did you think of him? Honestly, exactly what he appears to be. A good man in a difficult situation who doesn't want complications. Which means we need to make this as uncomplicated as possible. Agreed. But even as Jennifer said it, she knew complicated was already inevitable. Not because of PR or media or public spectacle, but because she couldn't stop thinking about the way Michael had looked at his daughter's school, the protective concern in his eyes, the way he'd refused help until it threatened Lily's safety, then accepted it without hesitation. He was a man who'd built his entire life around someone else's needs, who measured success not in dollars or achievements, but in whether his daughter was happy and safe. It was so foreign to Jennifer's experience, so completely opposite to every value she'd internalized in building her empire, that she found herself fascinated by it. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of managed crisis. The statement went out carefully, worded appropriately grateful, firmly requesting privacy. It didn't stop the attention, but it slowed the worst of it. Rachel coordinated with Riverside Logistics, ensuring Michael's supervisor understood the situation without making it seem like special treatment. Security teams positioned themselves discreetly around Michael's apartment and Lily's school, invisible but watchful. And then on Saturday afternoon, Michael's phone buzzed with a message that made his blood run cold. An unknown number, a photo attached. The image showed Michael and Lily at the neighborhood park, clearly taken from a distance with a zoom lens. The caption read, "Hero Dad's heartwarming afternoon with daughter. Exclusive photos." Michael stopped walking, his heart pounding. Someone had followed them, had photographed Lily without permission, was preparing to publish images of his 8-year-old daughter to capitalize on a story she had nothing to do with. His hands shook as he pulled up Jennifer's number and called. She answered on the second ring. "Michael, they photographed my daughter." His voice was shaking with suppressed anger. "At the park, without my permission. They're planning to publish the photos." Jennifer's voice went sharp and focused. "Who sent you this? Forward the message to me right now. Our lawyers will send a cease and desist, immediately threaten lawsuit if they publish, and make it clear that pursuing your daughter will cost them more than any story is worth." Rachel's voice came through in the background. "Got the forwarded message. Running the number now. Should have an outlet identified within minutes." Michael sank onto his couch, the adrenaline crash leaving him hollow. "I thought this was almost over." Rachel said the attention was dying down. "It is." Jennifer's voice was gentler now. "This is the last gasp, someone trying to squeeze one more story out of the situation. We stop them hard, make an example, and everyone else backs off. I promise you, Michael, we will protect Lily." Something about the way she said his daughter's name with genuine care, rather than just professional concern, made Michael's throat tight. 15 minutes later, another message from the same number. "Apologies for any concern. Photos will not be published. Have a good evening." The relief was so intense, Michael actually laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that surprised him. Jennifer was still on the line. "They backed down?" "Yeah, of course they did. They're vultures looking for easy prey. Show teeth and they scatter. Are you okay? Yeah, just I've never had to deal with anything like this before. People following my kid threatening to publish her photo for clicks and ad revenue. You shouldn't have to deal with it at all. It's invasive and exploitative, and I'm sorry my rescue put you in this position. Not your fault you choked on fish. Jennifer laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. True, though I'm rethinking my seafood choices for the foreseeable future. They talked for a few more minutes, Jennifer confirming that security would be enhanced around Lily's school and their apartment for the rest of the week, just to make sure no one else got ideas. By the time they hung up, Michael felt the crisis had passed, but the conversation had shifted something in his perception of Jennifer Hayes. She wasn't just providing resources out of obligation or guilt. She was genuinely angry on Lily's behalf, had moved immediately to protect a child she'd never met, had weaponized her wealth and power for something that mattered rather than just business advantage. By the following week, the media attention had faded to almost nothing. A celebrity scandal broke on Wednesday, dominating news cycles and social media, and the story of the mystery hero faded into the background as the internet's fleeting attention moved on to fresh drama. Michael's life returned to its regular rhythms with surprising speed work. Lily sleep repeat. The security detail withdrew quietly once it became clear no one was following them anymore. Corporate issued their vague statement about employing quality people and then forgot about the whole thing. On Sunday morning, Michael woke to find an envelope that had been slipped under his apartment door. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Michael, I wanted to thank you one more time privately now that the circus has died down. What you did for me mattered more than you probably realize. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know you value your independence and I respect that. But sometimes life throws curveballs none of us can handle alone. When that happens for you, I hope you'll remember that you have someone in your corner. With sincere gratitude, Jennifer. Below her signature was a phone number, her personal cell, Michael assumed, not the business line. He stood in his small kitchen, reading the note twice, feeling the weight of the offer. Jennifer Hayes, Billionaire CEO, telling him he could call for anything. It was surreal and touching and slightly overwhelming. Lily wandered out of her room, still in her pajamas. What's that? Just a thank you note from the lady I helped last week. Oh. Can we have pancakes again? Absolutely. As they made breakfast together, Lily chattering about school and whether they should get a hamster if Mrs. Chen allowed it, Michael thought about Jennifer's note. She'd kept her word about everything, protecting Lily, managing the PR, making the chaos as brief and painless as possible. And now she was offering ongoing support with no strings attached. Part of him still resisted accepting that such help could be genuine. But a larger part recognized that Jennifer had proven herself through actions, not words. When Lily had been threatened, Jennifer had moved immediately to protect her. When Michael had needed legal help, she'd provided it without hesitation. When he'd asked for privacy, she'd enforced it. Maybe some people really did help without expecting returns. Maybe the world wasn't quite as transactional as his experience had taught him to believe. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Michael pulled out the note and read it one more time. Then he saved Jennifer's number in his phone, not because he intended to use it, but because knowing it was there felt like a safety net he hadn't realized he needed. Winter settled over the city with early darkness and cold that seeped through old apartment windows, no matter how much weather stripping he applied. Lily started a multiplication unit at school, made plans for her 9th birthday party, and stopped asking about the class pet after Mrs. Chen's hamster escaped and was never found. Michael's life returned to familiar patterns so completely that the incident at La Maison began to feel like something that had happened to someone else. He worked his shifts, attended Lily's school events, paid bills, and accumulated the small victories and defeats that made up an ordinary existence. Jennifer's note remained in his nightstand drawer, the phone number saved, but never called a safety net he was grateful not to need. Then, 3 months after the restaurant incident, Lily got sick. It started as a persistent cough that Michael initially dismissed as a winter cold. But when it didn't improve after a week, when Lily started wheezing during the night and her inhaler provided less relief than it should, Michael took her to the pediatrician with growing concern. Doctor, Morrison examined Lily thoroughly. listened to her breathing, asked questions about symptom progression, and then referred them to a pulmonologist with an urgency that made Michael's stomach clench. Her asthma is significantly worse than when I last saw her. Dr. Morrison's professional calm didn't quite mask her concern. I want a specialist to evaluate whether we need to adjust her treatment plan. The referral I'm writing is for Dr. Emily Chen at Children's Respiratory Center. She's excellent, and I'll mark this as priority. Michael nodded, taking the referral with hands that wanted to shake. Lily had been stable for 3 years, her asthma well controlled with standard medication. This sudden deterioration felt wrong, felt dangerous in ways he couldn't articulate but deeply feared. How soon can we get an appointment? Dr. Morrison's expression was apologetic. Their wait list is usually 6 to 8 weeks for new patients, but with the priority referral hopefully within 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 21 days of listening to Lily struggle to breathe at night, of watching her tire easily during activities she'd handled fine a month ago, of administering medication that wasn't working well enough. Lily, sitting on the examination table with her legs dangling, seemed unconcerned. "Can we get ice cream after this, Dad?" Michael's voice was steady despite the fear coiling in his chest. "Sure, sweetheart. Whatever flavor you want." They stopped at the ice cream shop on the way home, Lily chattering about school while Michael smiled and responded and tried not to think about his daughter's labored breathing or the way she'd had to stop twice on the walk from the parking lot because she was winded. That night, Lily woke at 2 in the morning, coughing. Michael was beside her bed in seconds, helping her sit up, administering her rescue inhaler, rubbing her back while she fought to catch her breath. It took 20 minutes for the episode to pass, Lily finally falling back asleep, exhausted, leaning against him. Michael stayed awake, watching her breathe, counting her respirations, listening to the wheeze that shouldn't be there, and feeling helpless in a way he hadn't since Sarah's final weeks in the hospital. He couldn't wait 3 weeks. Lily needed help now, needed a specialist who could figure out what was wrong and fix it before it got worse. But Dr. Chen was the best in the city, and the best came with wait lists and gatekeeping and systems designed to protect doctors' time rather than accommodate parents' fear. At 3 in the morning, sitting in Lily's room with his phone casting blue light across the darkness, Michael pulled up Jennifer's contact information. He stared at her number for a long moment, pride warring with pragmatism, independence, fighting necessity. Jennifer had said anything, had promised she was in his corner, had given him her personal number and told him to use it when life threw curveballs he couldn't handle alone. Was this that moment? Or was he giving up too easily, taking the path of least resistance instead of exhausting other options first? He could call other hospitals, other specialists. But deep down he knew Dr. Chen was the best. If he was going to get help, it might as well be the best help available. Every other option he could think of hit the same wall time, and Lily didn't have time. Michael took a breath and typed before he could overthink it. "This is Michael Torres. I'm sorry to reach out like this, but my daughter needs a specialist and the wait is 3 weeks. She can't wait that long. If you know anyone who could help us get an earlier appointment, I would be grateful. I understand if this is asking too much." He read it twice, finger hovering over send. This was breaking his own rule about self-sufficiency, accepting help from a billionaire because his daughter was sick and the medical system moved too slowly for emergencies that weren't technically emergencies yet. But what choice did he have? He sent the message before he could talk himself out of it, then sat in Lily's room feeling the weight of having broken his rule about independence. 15 minutes later his phone buzzed. Not asking too much at all. Which specialist and what condition will make calls first thing in the morning? Relief so intense it was almost painful washed over him. Michael typed back the details. Dr. Emily Chen, Children's Respiratory Center, severe asthma exacerbation, and added a simple, "Thank you, really." The response came quickly. "Don't thank me until it's handled. Try to get some rest. We'll figure this out." Michael didn't rest. He sat with Lily until dawn watching her breathe, and when his alarm went off at 7, he called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Kenneth Anderson answered with concern, not irritation. "Everything okay?" "Lily's having asthma problems. Need to stay home with her." Kenneth's response was immediate. Take whatever time you need. Family first always. Michael got Lily ready for school despite his instinct to keep her home, recognizing that maintaining routine was important and that missing school would just worry her. He walked her to class, spoke quietly with her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, about the situation, and extracted a promise to call immediately if there were any breathing difficulties. "We'll watch her closely, Michael." Mrs. Patterson's kindness made his throat tight. "And she's going to be okay. Kids are resilient." He wanted to believe her. But resilience had limits. Sarah had been resilient too. At 9 in the morning, Jennifer called. "I spoke with Dr. Chen's office. They can see Lily today at 2 p.m. if you can make it. I explained the situation and they're squeezing you in." Michael sat down heavily on his couch. "Today? How did you—" Jennifer's tone was matter-of-fact. "I've donated to Children's Respiratory Center for years. That comes with certain considerations when I call asking for favors. I hope that's all right. I know you value doing things on your own, but Lily needs help and I could provide it." Michael's throat was tight. "It's more than all right. Thank you. I don't know what else to say except thank you." "You don't need to say anything else. Just get Lily to that appointment. Dr. Chen is genuinely excellent. If anyone can figure out what's wrong and fix it, she can." What Jennifer didn't say on that phone call, she'd been awake since 5 in the morning, couldn't sleep, thinking about Michael's message. Had called Dr. Chen at 7, woken her at home, used every bit of influence she had. Not because she owed Michael, she did, but that wasn't why. It was because she remembered being 8 years old, scared, watching her mother struggle to get her baby brother the medical care he needed. She remembered what it felt like to be powerless. She had power now, and using it to help a child breathe easier was the best possible use of that power. Michael picked Lily up from school at 1, telling her they had a special doctor's appointment with someone who knew all about asthma. Lily, who'd been through enough medical appointments to be wary, looked uncertain, but didn't protest. Children's Respiratory Center was in the medical complex downtown, bright and modern, with colorful murals designed to make young patients less anxious. Michael checked in at the reception desk, half expecting some complication or delay, but the receptionist simply smiled and said Dr. Chen would see them shortly. They waited only 10 minutes before a nurse called Lily's name. Dr. Emily Chen was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an efficiency that reminded Michael of Rachel Morrison. She spent an hour examining Lily, detailed questions, running tests, listening to her breathing with focused attention. "Lily, I'm going to have you work with my respiratory therapist for a few minutes while I talk to your dad, okay? She's going to do some fun breathing exercises with you." After Lily left with the therapist, Dr. Chen turned to Michael, her expression serious but not grim. "Her asthma has progressed from moderate to severe. The good news is that it's treatable with the right medication combination. The bad news is that her current treatment plan isn't sufficient anymore." Michael felt his stomach drop, but forced himself to listen calmly. Dr. Chen explained the changes: new controller medication, long-acting bronchodilator, weekly visits for the first month to ensure proper dosing, referral to an asthma education program. Whatever she needs. Cost isn't. Michael paused, mentally calculating his savings and health insurance coverage. Dr. Chen's expression softened, recognizing the calculation he was doing. "The education program is free, and I'm going to prescribe generic medications wherever possible to keep costs down. We also have a patient assistance program if the out-of-pocket becomes unmanageable. Let's get Lily stable first, then we'll worry about the rest." 20 more minutes of discussion followed, Dr. Chen explaining the treatment plan with a thoroughness that made Michael feel actually heard rather than processed. When Lily returned pink-cheeked from the breathing exercises, Dr. Chen knelt down to her level. "Lily, we're going to change your medicine to help you breathe better. It might take a little while to work perfectly, but I promise it will help. And I'm going to teach you some cool tricks for when breathing feels hard." "Deal." Lily considered this seriously. "Deal." Walking out with new prescriptions and a follow-up appointment card. Michael felt lighter than he had in days. The problem wasn't solved yet, but it was being addressed by someone who knew exactly what she was doing. His phone rang as they reached the car, Jennifer calling. "How did it go?" Michael found himself smiling despite everything. Really well. Dr. Chen is amazing. She figured out what's wrong and has a plan to fix it. Starting new medications tonight, weekly follow-ups. Jennifer's relief was audible. That's wonderful. I'm so glad she could help. This wouldn't have happened without you. We'd still be waiting 3 weeks while she got worse. You made this possible. I made a phone call. You did the hard part, recognizing she needed help and advocating for her. Still, thank you. I know I've been resistant to accepting help from you, but I'm grateful you offered it anyway. Jennifer's voice was warm. You're welcome. And Michael, you're not resistant to help. You're appropriately cautious about obligations and strings. But there aren't any strings here. Just someone glad to be able to return the favor you did for me. After hanging up, Michael sat in the driver's seat for a moment, looking at Lily in the rearview mirror as she studied the pamphlet about asthma the therapist had given her. Something fundamental had shifted. He'd reached out for help and received it without judgment or obligation, had accepted support without sacrificing his independence or dignity. Maybe the world was more generous than his experience had taught him, or maybe he'd just been lucky enough to encounter someone who understood the difference between help and charity. Over the next month, Lily's condition improved steadily. The new medications worked, her breathing episodes decreased, and color returned to her cheeks. Michael took her to weekly appointments with Dr. Chen, attended the asthma education program, and learned techniques for managing her condition that he wished he'd known years ago. The medical bills were significant but manageable with payment plans, and when the patient assistance program covered 30% of the medication costs. Michael felt the financial pressure ease slightly. He picked up extra shifts when he could, grateful for the overtime pay and the distraction of physical work. Jennifer checked in periodically with brief texts, "How's Lily doing?" or "Any improvement?" and Michael responded with honest updates. The communication was easy, undemanding, neither of them trying to build it into more than it was. Two people who'd connected through unusual circumstances, maintaining friendly concern for each other's well-being. In mid-February, Michael's phone rang with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, still wary from the media circus, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Torres, this is Catherine Flores from Technova Community Partnership Division. Miss Hayes suggested I reach out to you about a potential opportunity." Michael's guard went up immediately. "What kind of opportunity?" Catherine's voice was warm and professional. "We're developing a workplace safety training program for our logistics and facilities staff. Miss Hayes mentioned you have extensive first aid training and real-world emergency experience. We're looking for someone to help design the curriculum and potentially lead training sessions. It would be contract work, flexible hours, competitive compensation." Michael's suspicion mixed with interest. "Did Jennifer Miss Hayes create this position for me?" Catherine laughed, not offended by the directness. "Actually, no. The program has been in development for about 6 months. When Miss Hayes heard about it, she immediately thought of you and asked me to reach out. Whether you're interested is entirely up to you. No pressure either way." "Can I think about it?" "Of course. I'll email you details, program overview, compensation structure, time commitment. Take whatever time you need." After hanging up, Michael sat on his couch, turning the offer over in his mind. Contract work with flexible hours would mean better pay than the warehouse, a schedule that accommodated Lily's needs more easily, using skills he actually had rather than just physical labor. But it also meant accepting help from Jennifer again, moving further into her orbit, complicating the careful boundaries he'd maintained. That evening, after Lily was asleep, he called Jennifer directly. "Did you create a job for me?" Jennifer's response was firm. "I did not. I suggested you for an existing position because you're genuinely qualified and they need someone with real experience. Whether you want it is your decision." "It feels like charity." "It's not charity if you're qualified and they need what you can offer. That's just employment." She paused. "Michael, I understand your pride. I respect it, actually. But sometimes opportunities come through connections. That's not charity, that's how the world works. I wouldn't have suggested you if I didn't think you could do the job well." "What if I'm not good at it? Curriculum design, training sessions, that's not what I do." Jennifer's voice carried a confidence that surprised him. Then you'll learn. Same way you learned to handle Lily's asthma emergencies. Same way you learned the Heimlich well enough to save my life. You're capable, Michael. You just need to believe it. Michael thought for 3 days, weighing pride against pragmatism, independence against opportunity. Finally, he called Catherine back and accepted the position on a trial basis, 3 months to develop the curriculum and run pilot sessions, after which both sides could decide whether to continue. The decision felt momentous, like choosing possibility over safety, trusting Jennifer's belief in him even as he doubted himself. But for Lily, for the chance at something better, for the possibility of a life less dominated by exhaustion and financial worry, it was worth the risk. 2 years later, Michael stood at the front of a conference room presenting workplace safety curriculum to 40 warehouse supervisors from companies across the region. The program he'd helped develop had reduced workplace injuries at Technova by 40% in its first year, and now other companies wanted to replicate the success. The key is treating safety knowledge as essential, rather than optional. His voice carried confidence earned through dozens of these sessions. Every employee should know basic first aid emergency response, how to recognize when someone needs help. It's not complicated, it's just necessary. After the presentation, several supervisors approached with questions, and Michael found himself in the strange position of being treated as an expert rather than just a warehouse worker who'd gotten lucky. It was still slightly surreal, but he'd learned to accept his own competence without dismissing it as accident or charity. At 34, his life had transformed in ways he never could have anticipated. Lily was nearly 11. Her asthma managed so well she'd joined the school soccer team and was now their star player. She still had occasional episodes, but she knew how to handle them, and Michael had taught her coaches the same emergency protocols he now taught to corporate employees across the region. His relationship with Jennifer had evolved into a genuine connection built on mutual respect and the shared understanding that sometimes crisis brings the right people together at the right moment. Not quite friendship, given how different their lives remained, but deeper than mere professional courtesy. They met for coffee once a month or so, conversations flowing easily between updates on the training program expansion and Jennifer's curiosity about Technova's latest innovations. No pressure, no performance, just natural rhythm that felt effortless after 2 years. Jennifer had started a foundation, the Hayes Foundation for Workplace Safety and Emergency Preparedness, and Michael served on the advisory board. His practical experience balanced the theoretical knowledge of academic consultants, and the foundation was expanding rapidly, training thousands annually and funding safety programs in underserved communities. Over coffee one afternoon at their usual spot, Jennifer teased him. "You've come a long way from refusing free meals." Michael smiled. "I still refuse free meals. I paid for this coffee." "True, but you stopped refusing opportunities because someone persistent kept offering them until I was smart enough to accept." Jennifer's expression grew serious. "You were always smart enough, just needed to believe you deserved them." Michael reflected on the version of himself from 2 years ago who'd measured success purely in terms of Lily's well-being and his own independence. That Michael hadn't been wrong, just limited by assumptions about what was possible for someone with his background and circumstances. "Thank you." The words carried weight beyond this single conversation. "For everything. For seeing potential I didn't see. For not giving up when I was stubborn about accepting help. For protecting Lily when she needed it." Jennifer spoke gently. "You already thanked me about 100 times over the past 2 years." "I know. But some things deserve repeated gratitude." Jennifer's phone buzzed with a reminder board meeting in 20 minutes. "I have to go, but before I do, the foundation is hosting a gala next month. Fundraiser for expanding safety programs to underserved communities. Would you and Lily like to come?" Seeing Michael's expression, she quickly added, "Not as my guest as a member of the advisory board, you're supposed to be there anyway, but I thought Lily might enjoy it." Michael considered the invitation. A public event meant likely media coverage, being visible again in ways he'd spent so long avoiding. But this was for the foundation for work that genuinely mattered. More than that, it was a chance to show Lily that her father's knowledge had value, that ordinary people could create real impact. She'd love it. Been asking when she gets to wear the fancy dress we bought for her friend's bat mitzvah. Perfect. Rachel will send you the details. After Jennifer left, Michael sat in the diner while longer watching the city move past the windows. The core of who he was remained unchanged, still. Lily's dad, first and foremost, still valued self-reliance and dignity, still measured success in terms of whether his daughter was happy and safe. But he'd added new dimensions, professional competence, meaningful work connections that enriched, rather than complicated, his existence, and the understanding that accepting help when you needed it wasn't weakness, but wisdom. Driving home to pick up Lily from soccer practice, he told her about the gala invitation. Her eyes lit up immediately. Really? Can I wear my fancy dress? Absolutely. It's going to be a special night. Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Will there be a lot of people there?" Michael realized this would be his most public appearance since the restaurant incident. "Yeah, probably. The foundation raises money to help people learn safety skills. It's important work. Like what you do. Exactly like what I do." She considered this seriously. "I'm proud of you, Dad." His chest tightened with emotion. "I'm proud of you too, baby." The weeks leading up to the gala passed quickly. Rachel sent the details: Hotel Grandview Ballroom, 300-plus guests, formal attire. The list of confirmed attendees included philanthropists, corporate executives, and local media. The foundation would present a video about workplace safety programs, and Michael would be acknowledged as an advisory board member. No speech required unless he wanted to say a few words. Michael decided to prepare remarks just in case. Late at night, after Lily was asleep, he sat at the kitchen table with a notebook trying different approaches until he settled on why ordinary people learning basic safety skills mattered. He wrote from the heart, edited for clarity, and practiced in the mirror until it felt natural rather than rehearsed. The night arrived. Michael stood in his rented tuxedo, still uncomfortable in formal wear, but less so than 2 years ago, while Lily twirled in her deep purple dress with sparkles, admiring herself in the mirror. "Dad, you look so handsome." "You look beautiful, sweetheart, ready for a fancy party." "Ready." And Lisa Patterson, their neighbor, who still helped out occasionally, came over to see them dressed up. "You two look like you're going to meet the president." Michael laughed. "Not quite that fancy, but close." The Hotel Grandview was even more opulent than La Maison had been. The valet took their car, the doorman held the entrance, and the lobby featured marble floors and a crystal chandelier that dwarfed the one from the restaurant. Lily stared open-mouthed. "This is fancy." Michael squeezed her hand. "Very fancy. But remember—" Lily finished his sentence, having heard it countless times. "They're just people, same as everyone else." Exactly. Entering the ballroom took their breath away. Hundreds of people in formal wear filled the space, soft music playing, waiters circulating with champagne. Flower arrangements that probably cost more than Michael's first car decorated each table. Round tables covered in white cloth stretched across the room, place cards written in calligraphy. A stage at the front held a podium and large screen for presentations. Lily gripped Michael's hand tighter. "There's so many people." "I know, baby. We'll stick together." Jennifer found them near the entrance, elegant in a midnight blue gown, her hair up, jewelry simple but clearly expensive. She knelt down to Lily's level. "Lily, you look absolutely beautiful. And Michael, you clean up well." Michael glanced down at his tuxedo. "Feel like playing dress-up?" Jennifer's voice was quiet, meant only for him. "Everyone here is playing dress-up. That's the secret of these events. We're all performing versions of ourselves. You're just more honest about the performance." This relaxed Michael slightly, a reminder that the confidence surrounding them wasn't entirely real, just well performed. Rachel appeared to guide them to their table near the front. They were seated with other advisory board members and their families, including Dr. Emily Chen, Lily's pulmonologist, who was also on the board. Lily was thrilled. "Dr. Chen, are you here for the party too?" Dr. Chen smiled warmly. "I am, and I hear you're doing amazing with your asthma management." Lily sat up proudly. "I haven't needed my rescue inhaler in 3 weeks." "That's wonderful. You should be very proud." Dinner was served with choreographed precision, each course more elaborate than the last. Lily's eyes widened at the presentation, whispering, "Dad, this is fancier than La Maison." Michael had to agree. The conversation at their table flowed easily. Dr. Chen's husband asking about Michael's training programs, other board members discussing the foundation's expansion, spouses talking about normal parent things like schools and kids' activities. Michael realized with quiet satisfaction that he fit here. Not because he was pretending to be someone else, but because his expertise and contributions were valued. He belonged at this table. The lights dimmed as the program began. Jennifer took the stage, her voice amplified and professional. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. 2 years ago, the Hayes Foundation for Workplace Safety and Emergency Preparedness was founded on a simple belief: everyone deserves to know how to save a life. Tonight, I want to show you what we've accomplished together and what we can do with your continued support." The screen displayed the Foundation's logo and mission statement. Then a video began. Footage showed workplace safety training sessions at various locations. Factory workers learning CPR, restaurant staff practicing the Heimlich construction crews, reviewing emergency protocols, teachers at underfunded schools getting free AED training. Then Michael appeared on screen, demonstrating rescue breathing to an attentive audience. His voice was clear and authoritative as he explained how to recognize cardiac arrest. Seeing himself projected so large was jarring, but the genuine engagement of the workers he was teaching filled him with pride. Lily whispered loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "That's my dad." People turned and smiled. Michael blushed but couldn't help feeling proud of his daughter's uncomplicated enthusiasm. Statistics scrolled across the screen. 5,000 people trained in 2 years. 47 documented lives saved by program graduates, 150 workplaces with improved safety protocols, 30 schools equipped with AEDs. Michael had known these numbers, but seeing them presented this way made the impact feel tangible and significant. What the video didn't show. 3 months ago, a janitor named Robert Chen had saved his coworker's life using CPR he learned in one of Michael's training sessions. The coworker was a senior vice president. In the moment of crisis, none of that mattered. One human being knew how to help another human being. That's what Michael had taught him. That's what this foundation made possible: connection across all the barriers we build. That was worth more than any dollar amount on tonight's donation cards. After the video ended, Jennifer returned to the podium. 2 years ago, I experienced a moment of crisis that could have ended very differently. I'm standing here tonight because one person acted with calm competence when everyone else froze. That experience taught me the value of preparation training and the willingness to help strangers without expecting reward. Her gaze found Michael in the crowd. The invisible hero didn't want recognition, then probably doesn't want it now, but he deserves it anyway, not just for that single moment of crisis, but for the work he's done since to make sure others have the knowledge and skills to act in their own moments of crisis. She paused, then spoke directly to him. "Michael Torres, would you join me up here?" The room erupted in applause. Everyone turned to look at him. Every instinct screamed to refuse to stay invisible, to avoid the spotlight. But Lily was tugging his hand, eyes bright with excitement and pride. Dr. Chen was smiling encouragingly. He couldn't disappoint them. Michael stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the stage. The path felt very long, hyper-aware of hundreds of eyes watching, but the applause continued. On stage, Jennifer handed him a crystal plaque with his name engraved, Foundation Recognition Award. More importantly, she handed him the microphone, her expression saying she knew he had words worth sharing if he could find the courage. Michael looked out at the crowd, saw Lily's proud face, saw the advisory board table giving thumbs up, saw a sea of unfamiliar faces waiting to hear what he might say. He found his voice steadier than expected. "I'm not comfortable being called a hero. What I did in that restaurant 2.5 years ago was basic first aid. What matters is that everyone should know basic first aid, because emergencies don't care about your job title or bank account or education level. They just happen, and we all need to be ready." He glanced at the plaque, then back at the audience. 2 years ago, I saved someone's life and tried to disappear because I didn't think I deserved recognition. But I was wrong about that. Not because I'm special, but because we should recognize everyone who steps up in crisis. He listed them deliberately. The EMTs who respond to calls at 3 in the morning, the firefighters who run toward danger, the teachers who know CPR for the kids in their care, the parents who learn the Heimlich because their kids have allergies, the coworkers who take first aid classes on their own time. Those people are heroes too. They deserve resources, training, support. Lily was beaming from the table, clapping enthusiastically. The last wall inside Michael crumbled, the final remnants of shame about accepting help, about being visible, about believing his knowledge had value worth sharing. So thank you to Miss Hayes and this foundation for creating programs that give people those resources. Thank you to everyone here tonight supporting this work. You're making it possible for ordinary people to be ready for extraordinary moments. That matters more than you probably realize. He paused, making eye contact with different sections of the audience before continuing with what he really wanted to say. Because here's what I learned. Being a hero isn't about being invisible or visible. It's about being present, showing up when needed, accepting help when offered, giving help when able, recognizing we're all connected in ways that make everyone stronger when we choose connection over isolation. Another pause, then he added from the heart, it makes you wonder how many of us are walking around with knowledge or skills that could save someone's life, but we've never thought to share them. How many times have we let pride stop us from asking for help we genuinely needed? Connection isn't weakness. It's what makes us human. It's what makes us capable of extraordinary things. The applause was genuine and sustained, people rising to their feet. A standing ovation Michael hadn't expected. He returned to his seat feeling lighter than he had in years. Jennifer caught his eye from the stage and mouthed, "Thank you," deep satisfaction evident in her expression. She'd known all along he had this in him. He just needed to believe it himself. Dinner continued with the conversation at their table energized by his speech. People from other tables stopped by to shake Michael's hand, introducing themselves, sharing stories about how the training programs had impacted their organizations. A woman from a nonprofit explained how their staff had used the training to save a client having a seizure. A man from a manufacturing company reported injury rates down 40% since implementing Michael's protocols. Each story was a reminder of real impact, not abstract or theoretical, but real people and real lives. Later, as the event was winding down, Jennifer found Michael near the dessert table. That was a beautiful speech, honest, heartfelt. Meant every word. Michael paused. Thank you for pushing me to accept recognition. Still don't love being the center of attention, but I understand why it matters. Jennifer's voice was warm. It matters because your story gives other people permission to believe they can make a difference too. 2 years ago, you saved my life, taught me that genuine altruism still exists. Tonight, you helped raise $500,000 for safety programs that will save countless other lives. That's worth celebrating. Michael considered the chain of events that had led from a choking incident in a restaurant to this moment, the gala programs expanding lives being saved by people who'd learned skills they'd never thought to acquire. We make a good team. Your resources and vision, my practical experience and stubbornness. Jennifer laughed. The stubbornness is essential, keeps me honest, keeps the foundation focused on what actually works instead of what looks good in press releases. They stood in comfortable silence. Two people from completely different worlds who'd built genuine partnership through mutual respect and shared purpose. Lily's sleepy voice came from nearby. Dad, can we come to another fancy party sometime? Both adults smiled. Michael looked at Jennifer. Maybe if Miss Hayes invites us. Jennifer's response was immediate and warm. You're always invited, both of you. Consider it a standing offer. They stood a moment longer before Michael guided Lily toward the exit. Jennifer walked them to the car, the cool night air, a relief after the crowded ballroom. Michael, I know you've thanked me a dozen times tonight, but I need to thank you too. Michael was surprised. For what? You're the one who, Jennifer interrupted. Not just for saving my life, though I'll never forget that, but for reminding me that wealth is worthless if you don't use it for genuine purpose. This foundation, these programs, they're the best thing I've ever done with my money. Better than any acquisition or product launch or quarterly earnings. And I couldn't have done it without you. Without your honesty, your practical knowledge, your refusal to let me make this into performance. Michael settled on simple truth. I'm glad we found each other, even if circumstances were unusual. Me too. Driving home with Lily dozing in the back seat, Michael drove slowly. No rush to end this evening. Streetlights cast moving shadows. The radio played softly, and his life felt complete in a way it hadn't since Sarah died. Not just full of responsibilities and struggles, but full of purpose, connection, meaning. This was success, not money or recognition, but a happy child in the back seat, work that mattered, genuine partnerships built on mutual respect. 3 weeks after the gala, on a cool evening, Michael stood outside La Maison with Lily beside him. The same restaurant where everything had changed. She wore a nice dress, not gala fancy, but special, and Michael had on slacks and a button-down that no longer frayed at the collar. "This is where you saved that lady's life?" Lily asked, studying the elegant facade. "This is the place. It's fancy," Michael smiled. "Very fancy. But you know what I'm going to say." Lily rolled her eyes affectionately. "They're just people, same as everyone else." "Exactly." 3 weeks earlier, Daniel Rodriguez had called Michael. The maitre d' had been following the foundation's work and wanted La Maison's entire staff trained front-of-house kitchen management. Michael had just completed the final session that afternoon, and Daniel had insisted he return for dinner. On the house this time, and refusal wasn't an option. Daniel greeted them warmly at the entrance. "Mr. Torres, and you must be Lily. Welcome, both of you. Thank you again for the training sessions. Our entire staff feels more prepared, more confident now." He leaned in conspiratorially. "We had a situation just last week. A guest started choking, and our server knew exactly what to do. Performed the Heimlich perfectly. The guest is fine, the server is a hero, all thanks to your training." Warmth spread through Michael's chest. "That's wonderful. That's exactly what we hope for." Daniel showed them to a corner table, the same one Jennifer had sat at that night. Michael felt the weight of the full circle moment as he sat down. Lily studied the menu with serious concentration. "Dad, can I get the salmon?" "You can get whatever you want, sweetie." As they waited for their food, Lily asked about that night, wanting to hear the story again. Michael told it simply: a woman choking, no one knowing what to do, him doing what he'd learned from her asthma episodes. "Were you scared?" Michael was honest. "Terrified. But sometimes you have to act even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. Like when I have to use my inhaler at school even though kids might notice." Pride swelled in Michael's chest. "Exactly like that. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing anyway." Lily nodded, absorbing the lesson as naturally as breathing. Their meal arrived beautifully presented and delicious. They ate slowly, savoring not just the food, but the moment itself. Michael looked around the restaurant. The same crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, amber light. But everything was different now. He was different. Not trying to prove he belonged, not hiding who he was, just a man enjoying a good meal with his daughter, knowing he'd made a real difference in the world. "Dad, you seem happy. Like really happy." Michael was surprised by her observation. "I am happy." "Why do you say that?" "I don't know, you smile more now. You don't look tired all the time. You're pretty perceptive, you know that." Lily grinned. "I get it from you." His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Rachel told me you're at La Maison tonight. Full circle indeed. How does it feel?" Michael typed back. "Strange but right, like closing a loop that needed closing." Jennifer responded quickly. "Proud of you. For everything you've built from one moment of courage." Michael replied, "Couldn't have done it without you believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You always had it. Just needed the right circumstances to show it. Enjoy your dinner. You've earned it." After dinner, Daniel returned with dessert. On the house, of course. Michael caught himself before refusing automatically, his old habit of declining generosity, because it felt like charity. His new understanding told him that accepting gratitude gracefully was a gift to the giver. That would be lovely, thank you. They shared a chocolate soufflé, Lily's eyes wide with delight at the rich dessert. Before leaving, Daniel walked them to the door. Mr. Torres, I want you to know that night changed our restaurant too. Made us realize we weren't prepared for emergencies. We're supposed to provide safe, beautiful experiences, but we'd failed at the most basic safety. You didn't fail. And neither did we after your training. Thank you for coming back, for giving us a chance to do better. Michael shook his hand firmly. Thank you for the meal, and for caring enough to want to do better. That matters. Walking to the car through the cool evening air, Lily held his hand. That was really good, Dad. Can we come back sometime? Maybe for your birthday. Make it a tradition. I'd like that. They got in the car, Lily buckled up and was already chattering about the dessert. Michael sat for a moment before starting the engine, looking back at the restaurant where everything had changed. Deep gratitude filled him for that moment, that choice, that woman who'd been choking and unknowingly set everything in motion. Without that moment, he'd still be a warehouse worker struggling and isolated. With that moment came a career he loved. Impact. He was proud of connections that enriched his life. Not because saving someone's life entitled him to reward, but because that moment had opened a door to possibilities he'd been too scared to walk through alone. Jennifer had held the door open, believed in him, given him resources and opportunities, but he'd done the walking, the learning, the growing. Both things were true. He'd needed help, and he'd earned his success. Not either or, but both and. Starting the car, he listened to Lily chatter about homework due tomorrow. Tomorrow meant another day of training sessions, foundation work, the ordinary, beautiful life he'd built. But tonight represented perfect closure to a chapter that had started 2.5 years ago in this very place. The invisible hero had learned to be visible, and in doing so, he'd helped make countless others visible too. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, one moment of courage, one act of help, one connection at a time. As Michael drove away from La Maison with Lily beside him, the city lights blurring past the windows, he understood the truth that had taken 2 years to fully grasp. True heroism wasn't about being invisible or visible. It was about being present, showing up when needed, accepting help when offered, giving help when able, and recognizing that we're all connected in ways that make everyone stronger when we choose connection over isolation. Have you ever had to choose between staying invisible and stepping up, between pride and accepting help, between protecting yourself and being vulnerable enough to connect? Michael Torres learned that those aren't actually choices at all. You can be independent and accept support. You can be proud and ask for help. You can protect yourself and let people in. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's being human. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to be seen, okay to need help, okay to believe that ordinary people can create extraordinary change, one moment of courage at a time. Tell us in the comments, when was the last time you chose connection over isolation? When did you let someone help you, even though it was hard? We'd love to hear your story. The invisible hero had become visible, and the world was better for it.